Hi, welcome to my latest video. Today I was going to be fitting new rear brakes and looking at my lower suspension arms, but instead I'm going to be doing a job that I really wish I didn't have to do. I'm going to be replacing this, which is the hard brake line, okay, so the solid brake pipe that goes across the back of the engine and down to the UK driver's side offside front brake caliper. Why am I having to replace that? Well, a few weeks ago I fitted new front brakes. So I put on new discs, calipers, pads. Pit Lane Kitty helped me, and those brakes are performing very well. You can see there's a little bit of brake dust on the calipers there, and I've done a few hundred miles and they're performing well. As well as fitting new discs and calipers, I fitted on the passenger side a new brake hose. The intention is to fit new brake hoses all around the car, so I bought these nice stainless braided Goodrich hoses. On the passenger side it all went smoothly, okay, so it undid the nut or fitting, whatever it's called, the threaded thing on the end of the pipe, okay, so lots of WD-40, let it soak in, and then slowly undid that, and it did undo, okay, so it comes out of this, so that actually, so if I show you with the old hose, so the old hose, it goes in like that, okay, so you can just about see in here. It's a bit dark. I'll jack the car up in a moment and take the wheel off, and then we can have a closer look at this. Let's see if I can zoom in there, see if it exposes. There we go. So you can see there the hard pipe coming up to this sort of bracket. There is a kind of clip thing, point that thing there, a sort of clip which holds the flexible hose end in place, okay, so here is the end, okay, that sort of goes in like that. It's got a funny strange end to it. It's sort of like a sort of star shaped kind of shape, okay, and the hole that it goes into is the same shape, so that when that's in there it can't turn, so you have to undo the threaded end, okay. I'll put the camera on the tripod in a minute. This one comes up, so you undo that and then you pull out the clip and out comes the flexible hose, okay. Now when you undo the threaded end on the fixed hose, you've got to be really careful, because what can happen is this can actually seize onto the pipe. So what you do is you put a little bit of paint or a bit of tape or something on the pipe so that you can see if it's starting to twist, because if it starts to twist you need to stop immediately. On the passenger side it undid fine, okay, so there was no damage at all to the fixed hose. I undid the nut, moved it down, disconnected the rubber hose, and that came off, and then I fitted the new one in its place, which has got the same funny end to it, and put that in, tightened the nut back up into here, into the thread here, and then when it's all in place you put the clip in to kind of hold it in place. What I didn't realise is that you can actually do it a better way. I didn't notice at first, but these ends here actually have little flats on them, only two, one each side, okay, so it's not a hex fitting, it's sort of round with very slight flats, okay, so of course you could get you know, some mole grips or something like that, or a pipe wrench or something, and grip this, but you've got to be careful you don't damage it, because if you can't undo it you've got to stick with the rubber hoses, and that's what I had to do on this side. I started to undo the nut, and I hadn't put any tape or paint on the pipe, but I was holding it in my fingers as I was undoing the nut with my other hand with the spanner, and I could feel the pipe turning. And at that point I thought, hang on a minute, this is not working. The pipe is turning. So I was holding the pipe like this, and I could feel it twisting. So I immediately stopped and tightened the nut back up. Okay, and I kind of got away with it. There was no proper sort of damage as such to the pipe. It wasn't leaking, and the brakes work fine, and I've tested them by doing some emergency stops, and I've been on holiday driving to the Isle of Wight, and I've come back and everything's fine. Okay, so why am I bothering to change this? Well, two reasons. One, I don't know if any hidden damage has been done to the pipe. These pipes have a sort of black kind of coating. I don't know if it's paint or plastic or whatever, but they've got a sort of coating. So there's a possibility that the pipe could have sort of twisted and untwisted and had fatigue and damage hidden underneath that sort of surface layer. And I really don't want to sort of find one day that I hit the brakes and the pipe ruptures and that's it, my brakes fail. The other reason for changing it is when I detected the pipe twisting, I immediately went online and bought a replacement pipe, because it was a couple of days before holiday. I thought, oh my god, I'm going to have to change the pipe, and I ordered a new one, but the brakes were actually fine. So here we are a couple of weeks later, and I'm going to do it now. Okay, so I've got the part. I'm going to do it so that I've got a known good brake pipe, and it's not sort of playing on my mind that my brake pipe has some potential damage or a slight twist in it or whatever. We'll have a look at it when I get it off the car and see what's going on with it. It's probably fine, but I thought if I bought the part, I might as well fit it. It's going to be an absolute nightmare of a job because the pipe is hidden away down somewhere behind this firewall, down there. You can actually just about see it. Let's see if I can zoom in and you can see. Where is it? There it is. There it is. Okay, so there's the pipe coming up and then it disappears. Okay, so it kind of comes up from the wheel, from the brackety bit where it goes onto the flexible pipe, up there, and it disappears behind there, and it runs along underneath the brake master cylinder, the ECU, and it goes over to the ABS unit. Now there is a little joint, okay, because this, if you look at this, that's not long enough to reach the ABS unit, which is over near my mug of coffee over there. Okay, so there's a joiner somewhere, so that probably sits, yeah, if I line that up with the one that we can see, yeah, so it gets to kind of here, okay, and so that I know that down there somewhere there's a joint, okay, and then it carries on over to the ABS unit. So I'm going to have to dig down to that. I'm going to have to remove the scuttle panel, the wiper arms. I'm going to have to remove the sort of bulkhead thing. There are kind of like two firewall bulkheads. This one is removable, okay. And I've also noticed that I think this little panel here is removable because the pipe goes behind it. There's a sort of the packaging comes with a sort of foam block. Now you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, you've got one there and you've got one here, why have you got two pipes? Well, I bought two because there are two different part numbers. So when you look online, the pipe, so you put in Freelander 2 front brake pipe, comes up with various links, and it came up with this one on, I think it was a sort of Jaguar Land Rover spares part. I think it's actually the official kind of Jaguar Land Rover Spares website. I'll put a link at the bottom of the screen now, and I'll also show you the picture. It's a diagram, it's not a photo, but it's a diagram on their website, okay, and it shows this pipe, okay. So I thought, that's the one I need. Clicked order now, add to basket, bought it, and the part number, I'll put it at the bottom of the screen as well, but it's LR014379, and that was brilliant, and I waited for that part to arrive. Meanwhile, I looked on eBay and I saw this one, which also showed the same diagram and the same pipe, but with a different part number. This one, LR005258. What's going on? What's the difference? Well, let me just take this one out of the packet and we'll have a look. Okay, so this pipe here is the other one, and it's the same diagram and the same reference number on the diagram. This bit here is very similar in shape. The end on this one seems a little bit sort of pointy out that way, but this is the same, that's the same, that's the same, and then we get to this point and this one goes off up in the air. Now, I don't know whether that's been bent in storage, okay, so somebody could have stepped on this or something and bent it. Okay, so I think this pipe is actually the same. I could probably very carefully bend that out and it would be identical to this one. Maybe this one is for left-hand drive vehicles. If you think about it, they're going to have the steering wheel there, the pedals. I think the master cylinder is over here. I'm not sure, actually. I've never looked at a left-hand drive Freelander 2 to see sort of how things are done. I mean, the battery can only really go here. So, is there a battery and master cylinder, or is there some sort of bar that kind of links across to the existing master cylinder location? I've seen that done on quite a few cars. So the left-hand drive just has the pedals, and then there's a control bar that goes across and operates the master cylinder in the same place as the right-hand drive. If you have a left-hand drive Freelander 2, please let me know. Okay, I'd love to know how it's done. But I'm going to assume that things are different in that area. Okay, so is this one for a left-hand drive? Taking that hose sort of up and over, I don't know, the steering column or something? I'm not sure. I don't really know because I haven't looked at one. Okay, so there's every possibility this one is damaged. So I'm not going to use that. I bought it really just to compare. Okay, so I'm just going to put that there, and we'll forget about that one for now. But if you know the answer to this, why there are two different part numbers for the same pipe, and one appears to sort of have a slightly curved end on it, then please leave a comment below. This is the one I'm going to fit. Okay, this is the one with the straight end, which I am 100% confident that is the right one for my car. Okay, what I'm going to do is remove all of this, and we'll actually look down the back and have a look. So I'm not going to jack the car up just yet. Okay, so two reasons. One, it's a lot easier to get down the back with the car on the ground, and secondly, Mrs. Pitts has gone to the supermarket, so if I push the car back and jack it up, she's not going to be able to park. So I need to wait until she comes back, then I can push the car, well, move the car back a bit, give myself a bit more room, jack the car up, take this wheel off, and we can have a proper look at this hose end and flexible pipe, because I'm still running the standard rubber hose over there, and I want to fit this one. Okay, I want to get rid of the old rubber hose because they're, I don't know, 16 years old now. They're supposed to be changed every 10 years. Okay, so mine are getting a bit old. This one here, as you can see, it's not perished or anything, but it's just a bit sad looking. Okay, so I want to get rid of all the rubber hoses off my car, fit these lovely new stainless braided hoses and redo the brakes. I've done the front, but redo the back brakes as well. New discs, calipers, caliper carriers, pads, handbrake shoes, the works, okay, the whole lot. So it's a complete brake overhaul. And the rear is what I'm meant to be doing today, but I've now had to kind of break off from the plan and do this. So I'm going to put the camera on the tripod. I'm going to remove all of this. I have done a previous video on removing the scuttle panel and another video on removing that firewall. Okay, so I'm not going to film all of that, just in the interest of keeping the length of this video down a bit. If you want to know how to remove this, it's very, very easy. Wiper arms off, so you pull off those, 15mm socket on there, put some tape on the windscreen to mark where the wipers are. There are marks on the glass apparently. Somebody did tell me there's little marks somewhere. I think it's this thing. It's a little circly thing. Okay. Is there one over here? Can't see one. No. Okay, so what I do is I just put a bit of tape, or if your windscreen's really dirty, you can just put a mark on the glass. Okay, but a bit of masking tape helps get those wipers on the right spline as such when you fit them back on the spline shafts. Okay, wiper arms off, scuttle panel out, 5 screws. Okay, so I've got my scuttle panel inserts here which I sell. I've got about 2 sets of those left. Keep the scuttle panel pushed up under that lip on the windscreen, okay, because they have a habit of sort of drooping and the gap opens up and then water gets in. Okay, so if you would like scuttle panel alignment inserts, I've got 2 sets left. Okay, when they're gone, they're gone. Alright, so website address below, beaverspits.com. My site, my shop is closing at the end of August 2025, right, end of this month. It is now the 2nd of August, I think, today. Okay, so 1 month, and then it will be closing. Now, I will have some stock left over after that. I'll be moving that to eBay, beaverspits_.com, okay, and I'll just be sort of selling bits and bobs and spare parts and second-hand things as well, just general bits and pieces sold on eBay. Alright, so I'm not going to be making a lot of the parts that I was selling, but some things like headlight rods I'll probably keep doing, but I'm not going to be making roof light bar brackets, spotlight brackets and all that kind of thing. Okay, right, I'm going to get the scuttle panel off, then I'm going to pull out this panel. Now that panel, that firewall panel, is a bit of a game to pull out. Okay, I did a previous video on that. I'm not going to film that. It's a job to get out, especially if you've still got the soundproofing. I've ripped all mine out because it was falling apart. Okay, so there are various nuts and screws and bolts to remove that. Probably going to have to remove this ducting as well. Okay, so that just helps with access. And I might even possibly have to remove this fixed black pipe. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, let me make some progress and then I'll start filming again when most of that is kind of cleared out the way. Okay, so scuttle panel removed and the inner firewall panel. That's a little bit of a job to get out. Okay, so there's a bolt up here, there's a bolt there. That was the only 2 bolts I had, but I think there might be probably another one down there on yours and possibly down there. I left those bolts out when I refitted it, when I removed that panel a year or 2 ago. Okay, so that panel is going a bit rusty. I have some anti-rust primer and some dark grey paint. It's not sort of Lego grey the same as this, it's just dark grey, similar to the engine bay, because you'll notice the engine bay on this car is not actually the same colour as the metallic bodywork paint. It's just a dark grey. Okay, so I'll be giving that a clean up and a coat of paint before I put it back on. So what I'm going to do is very quickly just talk you through what we've got behind here, because it's always interesting seeing everything. We've got, okay, wipers, wiper motor, master cylinder reservoir, okay, so it's the brakes, and the clutch also uses that fluid, okay. So we've got a couple of pipes going off here which then go across into, I think, the ABS unit, which is there behind the battery. We've got the alarm, we've got the ECU here, and this is the vacuum hose. To get that panel out, you've got to wiggle it a bit, and the problem is this vacuum pipe here, okay, so you might be able to disconnect it from the vacuum pump, but I just kind of shoved it over, and by pushing the panel sort of that way over here, I managed to kind of wiggle it out, okay. But the thing you've got to watch is down there is a large grommet, okay, which this thing here, which is on the heater hoses, okay. So that is the thing that causes all of the problems when you put the panel back in, because if you don't get it slid over that grommet properly, then the sharp metal is going to cut through your heater hoses, okay. So that's what makes it really difficult to refit. Took me quite a while when I did it before, but once you've done it once, you kind of get the technique right. But you've got to kind of slide that in, check the grommet is lined up and the metal's sliding over it, and well, not sort of over, but in between the little kind of groove that runs around it, which unfortunately kind of closes up the minute the panel's removed. And once that grommet is in, you can sort of shove that hose over and get things back in. This pipe here clips. There's a clip somewhere here, about here, that kind of clips that to the back of the panel. It's the only thing that's attached. Everything else is attached to the other firewall, which is that way. So the pipe that I want to change is this one down here. So let's zoom that in. Okay, you can see there, it's this one here, and there is a joiner. I knew there would be a joiner because that pipe is not long enough to get all the way up to the ABS unit, which is here. Okay, so if we have a quick look at the ABS unit, identify which pipe it is. So we can see here that there's actually letters stamped on here, okay. It's difficult to see that, but try and zoom that a bit. Okay, so there's FR front rear right, SC, and what does that other one say? What does that say? RC? PC. Okay, so I'm guessing that's primary circuit and secondary circuit, maybe? Primary cylinder. So these ones coming in, no, it's not those, it's these big ones here. These big ones are from the master cylinder. Then we've got front right, front left. Okay, so front right is the one that I'm going to be disconnecting further along, and then these two coming out here are rear left and rear right. Okay, so it's this pipe here which disappears off down, and then you can just about see it kind of going across there. It's really hidden away, and this is going to be fun and games changing this. Fun and games. It goes, let's have a look. So it goes across under there. I really don't want to have to remove this, but I was planning to remove this at some point anyway to duct down to the turbo, but yeah, I wasn't planning to do that today. Maybe I've just got to do that now as well. So what I want to do is try and remove this panel. So this little panel here looks like part of the sort of car body, but it is removable, okay. Quite how I get that out, I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a bolt there, the bolt hidden away here, and there's a sort of what looks like a plastic nut there. And I can see another bolt head down there. That is going to be a real pain to get to. Absolute pain to get to that. But I've got to remove it because the brake pipe comes up behind that, it goes through a hole, and it's not going to be possible to get the pipe down through that with this sort of kink on the end. This is going to be hard, really hard. I'm trying to kind of run the pipe underneath all of that lot over to there. So what I want to do is run the new pipe alongside the old one. I'm not going to touch the old pipe until the new one is in position and alongside it. Once I know that I've managed to get it into position, which is going to be the hard bit, I can then just undo the ends and do up the new ones. Okay. I don't want to take the ECU out. I do not want to disturb. This is a heck of a lot of wires here. We're about 100 wires going into the ECU, and they've been sat nicely for about 16 years. If I disturb them, some of them may not reconnect. Okay, so just got to try and do this job without disturbing any of the old wiring, because that's when electrical problems start to occur, when things are unplugged and plugged in again and don't make a circuit because they're covered in mud and corrosion and whatever else. Okay, right, I'm going to have a look at this panel now, see if I can get that out. Okay, so I'm trying to remove this panel here. I've taken out a bolt somewhere. The one here was already removed, so I then took out, oh, it was not a bolt, it was a nut. There was a nut on that thread there. This is now sort of moving, but I think there's another nut underneath this big grommet going kind of that way. So let me see if I can zoom in a bit so you can see this. So it's not that one, and it's not the one below. That's not really a nut, that's sort of thread coming through, but that grommet stays attached to the sort of, well, stays attached to this wiring loom here. But underneath there is another nut like this threaded one. Okay, so there's another one there. There's also what appears to be a bolt head there, which is going to be really difficult to get to. Really difficult. May have to jack the car up and take the wheel off and get in and take this ducting off. Okay, so car is now up on the jack and the axle stands. Here are the new brakes that I fitted a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so standard front calipers painted nice and orange. The petrol 3.2 litre carriers with bigger discs. Okay, so the bigger discs are fitted to the petrol models, and we've got Pagid pads, which I find really, really good, much better than other brands that I've tried before, such as EBC, Mintex, Brembo. I find these Pagid ones are really, really good. If you've not tried Pagid pads, give them a go. Okay, so that's all fine, but this is the hose. Okay, so this is the old hose, which I had no choice but to keep using. And here, if I can just focus in on that, difficult to see, but there is the rigid brake pipe. That's the end. Okay, so the usual thing is to sort of undo this and drop it down a bit, and then you pull out this clip here. Okay, and the hose, the rubber hose, comes out, and you unscrew here and replace it. Okay, so what I found is that when I was undoing this here, this pipe started to twist, and I've heard of quite a few people do that and actually shear it off and then have to do what I'm doing today. So I'm hoping this video will help somebody who will also manage to twist their brake pipe, maybe even shear it off. Okay, so when I first noticed that it was twisting, I thought, oh my god, how on earth am I going to replace that brake pipe? because it goes off round the back of the engine. It kind of looked like the car was built around that brake pipe. Okay, so I've looked into it. I've heard on the 302 forum of a couple of people who have had to do this job, and they said it is doable, but it's a bit of a job really, getting down to the pipe. Once you've removed everything, then it's then fairly straightforward once you can get access. It's the getting access that's the tricky bit. So I've removed the scuttle and I've removed this bulkhead, but this is in the way. It's making it really difficult to undo that one remaining bolt which allows this little panel to come out, and that's got to come out in order to tuck the brake pipe behind it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can actually remove this. If I can't easily remove it, then I'm just going to have to struggle on and try and use like a swivel head ratchet spanner or something or other to get to that bolt. Okay. And when that is dealt with and that panel's out, I should then hopefully be on the construction rather than the destruction phase. Right, I'm going to get underneath now and I'm going to have a look. Let me see if I can do this with the camcorder. I'm going to have a look and see. Right, okay. So this is a bit cramped here, but what we've got under here is, let's see if I can try it. Right, so you can see this thing with the oil stains. Okay, so that's the oil that's leaking, still leaking down from the duct above, I think, or it's coming out from the actual joint to the turbo, which is sort of here, into the turbo. The oil is coming from somewhere. I've replaced most of the ducting across the top of the engine, but there's still oil there, and it is black engine oil, so I think it's coming out of the breather vents, unless there's a gasket or something leaking somewhere and oil is actually coming out of the, I don't know, timing belt area or something. But it's just so inaccessible that what I'm going to do is remove all of that ducting. There is a Jubilee clip over here. I'm hoping it's literally one Jubilee clip and the whole lot comes off, and then my aim is to replace that with blue silicone hose. That was meant to be in another video, so I'm going to have to somehow kind of cut to that video. I don't really want to actually show that project in this video. This video is about the brake hose and brake line. So, but as always the case, these projects overlap slightly, and sometimes you've got to do one in order to enable you to do another one. Right, I'm going to try and get that Jubilee clip off and see if that entire black plastic duct thing will come out, and that should give me better access for doing the brake pipe. Right, I've managed to get that out. That was a bit of a challenge getting that out. One Jubilee clip at the bottom, but then you have to really wiggle it up through, twisting it one way then the other, and it looks like it's never going to come out, and then pop, out it comes. Okay, you do have to unclip the fuel hoses. Okay, 2 fuel hoses on there and the bolt at the top, okay, which goes into that sort of cam, what was it, timing belt kind of cover there. Okay, so that is then out. Now as you pull it out, just make sure it's not catching on any wiring. The crank sensor wiring is in that vicinity, but it should be going underneath the duct. Okay, so as I was pulling this out, I suddenly thought, oh god, I'm pulling on the wire for the crank sensor, but I checked and it's okay, it's fine, it was underneath. So that is that horrible black plastic duct, which I've wanted to remove for many years. I'm going to put that over here, and the aim is to not fit that again. Okay, so I'm going to be replacing the whole thing with some silicone. Now let's have a look under here. Okay, so right, what have we got there? So that is, you can see there, it is a bit tricky to see, but that is then the mouth of the turbo. But there is another kind of short hose. It's like a short joiner hose thing. Okay, so there's a wire here which I think is the crank sensor wire, which you've got to be really careful of. If that gets damaged, then that's it, the car won't start. So okay, right, I'm going to try and get that bit of pipe off there. It's got a sort of one of those compression clip clampy things that Land Rover love to use. Okay, so over the back there is a thing. I need to get a pair of pliers on there and that should come off. There's a hose here, I don't know what that is. It looks like a coolant hose. I'm not sure. I think it's a coolant hose. Yeah, that's really close to it. Really close. Okay, alright. Well, I think I'm going to worry about that later on, because the priority is the brake pipe. Okay, so worst case, if I really don't get this done today, then I can just shove that ducting back in. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything more to make it impossible to refit that. Okay, the good news is I can now see clearly that bolt head. So I'm going to get the socket on that, get that undone, and I'm really hoping that that little panel comes out then. Okay, so I've had to resort to a step ladder now to climb up and get down the back here, and I've removed that bolt and that should come out now, which it does. Okay, so we've got a small secret metal panel which doesn't actually look like it's a removable panel, but it is. And the good news is we can now clearly see the brake line. There it is. Okay, so there's a lot of foam and stuff here which helps to sort of seal up the bulkhead. This big grommety thing here, try and point this thing here, sort of stays with the wiring loom. So there's a bolt up here, there's a bolt down there, and there's two nuts above and below this big rubber grommet. Okay, two sort of threaded studs there with plastic nuts on. Now I should be able to get the new pipe in alongside the old one. Okay. What I'm going to do is the new pipe comes with some more foam, so I'm going to carefully cut that foam away or pull it off and completely expose the brake pipe, and then I can hopefully just sort of insert the new one in alongside it. Okay. So this new pipe comes with a new sticky foam block thing. Okay, so the old bit of foam I just ripped off. Okay, so there's the old one, all manky and dirty, so that one's come off. And it also comes with a new little sleeve thing, which I think the foam goes around that. Looking down there, if I zoom in, you can see the old hose has that sleeve on it, and that's where the foam was. Okay, so the foam wraps around that sleeve, and it also comes with just these sort of end cover thingies, just rubber end protector bits. Okay, and I've fitted those back on because when I shove that pipe down to the bottom, it's going to be scraping against lots of mud and oil and grime. Okay, and I don't want any of that getting into the pipe. Okay, so trying to keep things as clean as possible, protect the insides of the pipe from any dirt ingress. Once that's in place, I can then start pulling protective things off and putting new foam bits on and things like that. Right, I'm going to put the camera on the tripod and I'm going to have a go at feeding this pipe down. Now there's a couple of things I need to watch out for. So where that pipe, where is it? Where it goes down there, it goes behind, where's my finger? Right, behind this, okay, which I think is a return pipe for the power steering. I don't know, it might be to do with aircon, but it's some sort of pipe that goes off down to the bottom of the engine. Okay, so I need to go behind that. There's also some clips, okay, some plastic clips, so I need to somehow pop the old hose out of those and push the new hose in. But the main thing is just to get it in position, routed the same as the old one, sort of alongside the old one, and then I can then unclip and reclip the new one in. Right, now for the really, really tricky bit, and that is getting this in. So I'm going to try and feed that down there. Get it behind that aircon pipe. Oh, look at that. It's just popped into position. It's fiddly, very fiddly, but that is looking good. It's looking good. It's in position. Major sigh of relief. That was quite tricky. The worst bit is getting it sort of down here, but if you sort of feed it in behind that pipe, whatever it is, and then kind of push it down and pull it from underneath, and just be firm but gentle at the same time, and sort of get it dragged down, then here we can see, so there is the new pipe, okay, so that is sitting there alongside the old one, okay, ready to go into position. Now I'll worry about clips and things at the end once it's all connected up. That's sort of the easy bit. It's the routing of it which is the hard bit, okay, and I'm just going to move my sockets and things before I knock yet another 10mm socket into the abyss. Right, okay, so let's see if we can get a view on this. So there it is coming up behind this pipe. Okay, so let's zoom in a bit so you can see that. Yeah, where is it? There it is. So we've got two pipes now, and then this bit across here was quite straightforward. You just need to get up high, so I've climbed up on the step ladder and just pushed it underneath. So there's a heater hose was the only bit really that I had to kind of shove it underneath. So the pipe is now sitting, you can't quite see it there. Let's see if I can get that, zoom that in a bit. There it is, there, so you can see the old pipe is connected, well, underneath is the old pipe, and then on top with the black rubber boot on the end is the new one. So what I need to do now is undo the various connections. Now I've got to be careful that I don't introduce too much air into the system, because I've heard that if air gets back up into the ABS unit over there, then you have to sort of send it software commands and things to kind of purge out the air, which I don't really have the ability to do. So I'd rather not run the risk of any air getting in. So when I disconnect that end, I want really the pipe to be kind of sealed at the other end. Now I'm just having a think about it. What's highest risk here? So the highest risk bit is the end of this flexi hose where it nearly sheared off. I mean, the end does have a rubber cover on it, okay, so fluid shouldn't drip out too much. I'm wondering if I need to just tackle this first. My concern is if I do the other end and the pipe does shear off, which is very likely, and then I can't do that bit, then I've got a real problem. So I need to do this bit. I need to know that I can undo that before I do the caliper end. Okay, so now for the really fiddly bit, which is undoing that union over there. So I've got my sort of kneeler here with the step ladder. I'm going to lean right over, and with a I've got a 13mm brake hose spanner. I've also managed to get an 11mm brake hose spanner on the nut that goes into the sort of female bit. Okay, so I've managed to loosen that very slightly, put some WD-40 penetrating spray. Okay, so it's a specialist WD-40 penetrating spray on there first, let that soak in. So it has come loose, but there's just no room down there, so I'm just going to use a normal 11 now, just to kind of finish it off. So if I zoom in, the problem is I'm going to be kind of in the way. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to film this, but it's really difficult to show. Okay, now I've put a bit of blue tape, okay, on the old pipe, so I know which is old and which is new, because they look exactly the same. Once I've disconnected, they're going to look identical. Okay, so the old one has the blue tape on, that's the one that's got to come out. And I've also got some tissue ready there because brake fluid will leak. Now as soon as I've disconnected the old one, I need to get the new one threaded in, okay, to avoid air getting up to the ABS unit and fluid kind of coming out. Okay, so I need to work kind of quickly from the point at which I see fluid starting to drip. Right, let's see if I can get that. Yeah, it's behind that pipe, unfortunately. I don't know how. Right, there we go, that's better. Right. Okay. Right, let's see what I can do. Right, okay, I can just saw some fluid drip out of that. So it's starting to leak already. Right, it's finger tight. Okay. Right, I've got it in finger tight, and I now need to tighten that up. Putting that bit of tape on the old hose was really worth doing, because the minute that came out I didn't know which is which. Okay, so right, 13 and 11. Let's just do it with this one first. This is incredibly difficult. Right, that's it. I'm not going to go too tight. Okay. Crikey, that was really difficult. Right, so you can see there the new pipe is threaded in and that's tight, okay. And the old pipe can now be undone at the wheel end. Okay, so I've just come round to the wheel arch. There's a puddle of brake fluid down there, and despite that sort of black rubber nipple thing on the end of the pipe, fluid has been dripping out. Okay, so I do need to work quite quickly now and get this certainly onto the braided hose. I think I might just screw the braided hose loosely on just to stop any more fluid leaking, and then I can worry about removing the rubber hose. Right, so what I'm going to do, I thought that black rubber thing would be enough, but it's not. So I'm going to put the braided end, just going to screw that loosely, well, reasonably finger tight, onto the end of the solid pipe, and it's got a kind of cap on that end. It should stop fluid leaking. That's better. Okay. Right. A lot of brake fluid had come out, which is a shame. No air has got into the ABS unit, but it's not leaking anymore. What a job. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to undo the old fixed hose, the old rubber hose here. Just unclip that, and we'll see if it shears off, which is what almost happened the other day. So I'm just going to loosen the caliper end. I don't need to remove the caliper itself, because once that end's undone I can then just unspin the hose, and the new hose has an end that turns. Okay, so right, what size is this? 14? Yeah. Right, okay, so that's just loosened slightly. And now I'm going to undo this. And it'd be interesting to see what actually happens. I think this is going to break off. Come on. Well, it still hasn't sheared off. I think that is twisting a lot. I can feel the ridges on that when it's twisting. And there it is. It's actually come out all the way out, but the hose is very, very twisted. The pipe's really, really twisted. Okay, well, it didn't shear off, but I think if that was turned any more it would. Right, so I'm going to pull out the bracket, get this hose out and get the new one in. Come on, right, it's out. Right, that now comes out, and before I remove that completely, I want to get the new hose in position. Good. Oh, right. Always thread it in before you fit the little clip, okay, or even insert the thing into its hole at the end, because otherwise it would cross thread. Okay, right. Oh, very fiddly. Get this clip in now. Come on. There we go. There we go. It's in there. When it's in, it's loose. Okay. But it's just getting it in there. Right. Okay, so I need to do this and I'll put that grommety thing in. Right, old rubber hose coming out. 14mm spanner. Let's try and tip this a bit so you can see what I'm doing. Right, that one's coming out. Oh, right, get this end off. Now we'll have to bleed the brakes, obviously. Come on, get in there. Now, the steering is turned fully to the right at the moment. I'd like to try and straighten that up, but I can't really start the engine because I haven't really got any air ducting. I think what I'll do is pop that into there. Let's just see how that goes. I think that needs to come right down there. Now, these grommets are hard to put in. There we go. Right, there you go. It's a bit stretched, but that's the full. That's the steering's right on the limit, so that's as stretched as it's going to go. Right, that's in there. I'll tighten up this end now, which I don't know what size it'll be. 11. Right, here we go. Okay, the hydraulic circuit is sealed again. Got to bleed the brakes now, and then I've got to remove the old pipe very carefully, making sure I cut the right pipe, the old one. Okay. Right, I'm going to bleed the brakes now so that I don't forget to do that. Otherwise I'll be rebuilding everything, hop in the car and go for a drive and I haven't actually bled the brakes. Oh, now there's a bit of brake fluid there, but I think that's just from where I was assembling everything. let me go and get me a bottle of brake fluid and a hose, and I'll connect that on and pump through some fresh fluid. Okay, so what I've done here is connected some washer fluid hose, windscreen washer hose, into a milk bottle full of brake fluid. As long as the end of the hose is underneath the fluid, it should, let's tip this a bit, it should pump out the air and not let new air back in. So let's loosen off that. Now these bleed screws here, I want to sort of lubricate them with something. I don't really want to use copper grease because I'm just worried that's going to get into the brake fluid. So let's just make sure that that is. Okay, so fluid's starting to come out, but the trouble is it keeps pinging back, and right, is that open? Now what I can do is tuck the hose up like this, and that again makes a bit of an air trap, so any air will rise up to here rather than going back in the brakes. Right, now we need brake fluid, clean brake fluid. Okay, so dot 5.1, I'm going to open up the reservoir cap and make sure that that's topped up. Okay, good. So we've got fluid all the way down there. So what I was doing there was just literally pressing the brake pedal right to the floor, lift it slowly, and again, and it should pump the fluid through and the air, and we've now got pure fluid in here, no air bubbles at all. Okay, so let's tighten that one off and take that off. Now what I'll do before I pack all this stuff away is I'll just make sure the brakes, it's an 8mm spanner, I'll just make sure the brakes are nice and firm and there's no leaks anywhere else in the system. Okay, right, that's good. The pedal is really firm, nice and firm, and doesn't seem to be anything leaking anywhere. Let's check that other union on the bulkhead. I now need to remove the old brake pipe, and it can just be cut out, really. I've just got to be careful I cut the right pipe, and then clip in the new one, and that's it, good to go. Put it all back together and go for a test drive. Okay, right, so now I've got to be really sure that I'm cutting out the right one. I don't think I can get this old pipe out in one piece. So I've left the rubber sort of long grommety thing on the old pipe. There's a bit of tape at the other end. Okay, so I can see it all moving there. I'm just going to cut it here. Should be able to just use wire cutters. It's a sort of, I don't know if they're steel or cunifer, with copper nickel iron alloy, but I'm sure if I sort of cut it a bit and bend it around, it'll break off. And then it'll be in two pieces, which should be a lot easier to remove. Okay, wire cutters are not going to do it. It's pretty tough. Maybe they are steel. Right, what can I use? Let's see if I've got some cutter bits on my big pliers. Now, a very small pipe cutter, like the sort that plumbers use in confined spaces, would probably do it here. Oh, come on. Blimey. So it is hooked up around the new pipe, and there's also a clip over there which is going to cause let's see if I can get this. No, don't know if this is going to work. What I need is to get it underneath. Yeah, there we go, underneath the old pipe. Come on. Oh, God. Be careful I don't damage the new one. Right, okay, it's coming out. I can just be a bit rough with it because it's going in the bin. Let's see if I can fatigue it. There it is. Right, it's broken off. It's out. So it is much easier to cut it. Just score it with some pliers, cutters, and then just fatigue it and it'll break. Right, that is the old pipe. We'll have a closer look at that in a minute. I'm going to put it down in case it drips any fluid. I now need to make sure the new one is all clipped in nicely. Right, there's one under there. Let's get that one in. Yep, that one's in. This one, oh, I think it's spun round actually. Clips spin and a bit fiddly. Really doesn't help that I can't see it. There we go, that's in. Right, okay, so there are 3 clips. One over there, underneath this vacuum sensor. One here under the servo, and one on the wall going down. I think that is it, I can't see any more. There could be one over there, but I don't remember unclipping the old hose from that. The other piece of hose is clipped shortly after the joint, so I think that is it. That is it. New brake pipes in. What a job. Right. There we go. It's in. Alright, and that I would say is probably the second most difficult job I've done on this Land Rover. The first being the glow plugs. That was hard work, very hard work. Right, here we have our nice braided hose going to new pipe, which goes off over there and comes up here. There's a clip there. Okay, and it goes behind that sort of whatever it is, power steering pipe, and then onto the sort of shelf below the bulkhead. And there is a clip there, just there, and there's another clip just in the back there. Okay, that's all clipped in now, and I've pressurised it with the brake pedal. It's bled, no air in it, the pedal is firm, nothing's leaking. So I now need to put the bulkhead back in, scuttle back in, wipers, this piece of metal needs to go in. I'm going to rust proof and paint that and the bulkhead panel. They're not mega urgent to get back in. The only thing I need to be careful of is that bulkhead sort of stops fumes going into the cabin. So if I do drive without that in place, I need to put it on recirc mode so no sort of engine smells go inside the car, or exhaust fumes or anything else like that. Don't forget to fit the little black rubber tube, okay, that goes over the pipe there, and also the sort of block of foam, which is, I thought that was a kind of peel off sticky film, but I don't think it is. I think it's just sticky. So that needs to kind of wrap around it. I'm not going to put it on now, but I need to wrap that round the black tube grommet-y thing when I fit that metal panel. Okay, now I want to spray paint that, rust proof it. So once that's ready to go back on, I'll sort of roll this round the black rubber thing, and then sort of shove the metal panel on so that it's got this as a, I don't know, dust proofing, soundproofing, waterproofing. I don't know exactly what this does, but the old one had one, so I'll put this on. Okay. The other thing that I kind of had to do was remove this duct, and I'm now going to have a look at that and try to put some blue silicone in its place. I will do that in a separate video. Okay, so I don't think there's anything else to really cover in this video. I'm not going to show the reassembly, it's really just the reverse of removal. Okay, so put that little panel in first, then carefully put the bulkhead in, making sure that the vacuum hose and the heater hose grommet is located properly, and then it's scuttle back in, air ducts then, and I think that's it. I think that is it, and then I've got to do the rear brakes. So right, let's have a quick look at this hose here and just see what actually happened to it. Right, well, you can see that. Let's have a look at this sort of over here. If I hold it against a light background, okay, if I zoom a bit, you can hopefully see that. Hopefully that's focused. So you can see the pipe is completely twisted, terribly twisted. Okay, and that's what can happen when this nut thing on the end jams against the flare or the pipe. It's just probably corrosion has got in there and it's jammed. So yeah, that is what happens. But at least I've got a new hose now, and I've managed to film it so that if any of you are particularly rough with your brake pipes and you shear them off, don't panic, you can fit a new one, and it's only 28 quid for a new one. Okay, that's the hose going across here, the pipe across here. The one that goes down over there is one I've not had to do. I've heard that it's easier than doing this one. This is the hardest one. Okay, so I will put the part number at the bottom of the screen now for the pipe that goes across to the passenger, the UK passenger near side front caliper or front flexi hose. Okay, so that sort of finds its way. You've probably got to remove the battery and the airbox and everything like that, but it's a lot shorter, and I've heard that it's easier to change. Okay, so that is it. I'm going to start assembling bits and tidying up. It's going to rain shortly. It's getting quite grey. So yeah, what a job. Really difficult, that one, but I'm glad it's done now. I can drive peace of mind that I'm not driving around on a twisted brake pipe. Okay, so yeah, one less thing to worry about. Right, that is it. That is it. So let me try and step out of the way, do my outro. I could have actually done with backing my car up a little bit more before putting it on the jack, but yeah, well, I hope that video was useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.